Yeah, sure. Um, well, I'm standing in front of a cyanotype, so I'll just mention that I have this piece in a show here in New Hampshire, where I am right now. Um, and the technique of cyanotype is 19th century. It's old, it's nothing new. But I was recently looking at the Man Ray show at the Met, and I found all these correspondences between the way I'm using that imagery, that process, and some of these experiments with photography that the surrealists did. That go back to early developmental photography in the late 19th century. And of course, mentioning people like Anna Atkins, who used it for botany. So it's a really interesting thing to think about this medium of cyanotype as something that isn't quite photography, but has this kind of crossover into printmaking and painting. And that's what attracted me to it, as well as the luminous Prussian blue, which was something I'd explored through the natural indigo dye before I started using cyanotype. Although I tried it a long time ago in undergrad, it had been many years since I'd done a lot or done barely anything with it. Um, I think my work is very much rooted in dance and yoga as well as visual art. So I was excited and attracted to the idea of using my own body and other yogis and other movement practitioners in the work and thinking about composing some of these images almost like choreography, gesturally, thinking about positive and negative space. And then also working with photographic negatives. So I combined a few different techniques and I did photogram using the body. I used negatives for the images of the eyes in the piece that you're exhibiting, Eyes and Eggs. Um, and those are images of fish eggs, just so you know. It's a double-sided piece. It's a little different. One side is more symmetrical than the other, which I really like having this kind of piece that you have control how you want to exhibit it and have a conversation with it essentially. But also I painted into the piece using hydrogen peroxide. So there's also these brush strokes that you see that take away the blue. So it was a kind of ambitious piece. I needed an assistant to do it, but I wanted to try layering these different techniques and think about the body, women's bodies, fertility, and their control over their bodies, and thinking about choice, thinking about the history of women having any kind of power in society based on their ability to control their own bodies and also as a menopausal person, thinking about ways in which our sense of fertility is metaphorical. And in a way, we continue to have lush fertility, as long as we are alive. It's just, I mean, in this time when I think gender is a personal sense of identity as much, it's a construct as well as a biological determination, and I just wanted to say that, as someone who identifies as female and has never really questioned that, I guess I feel like I want that sense of liberation and freedom, or that sense of power to be able to determine oneself, to be available to everybody. And so it is easy to be a cisgender woman, but it doesn't mean that I don't have empathy or strong beliefs that others should have that kind of autonomy and protection to, define themselves and to express that sense of gender in whatever way they choose. So I think that this is a great opportunity, and that certainly is something that's been debated and it's very hot right now as a subject for several years. But I know teenagers who are in that crossroads, and I've seen even young children, being self-defining in many different ways. And I feel like it like kind of muddies the water for people who are already trying to figure things out when it becomes so politicized. I really love working with the body as a subject, and I feel like, identity is a rich terrain to work in. But I also have this kind of animal quality to some of the the idea like this is like a human being, but there are fish eggs. Like it's sort of about how we're also animals, and there's all that variety within the animal kingdom too, in terms of gender and sexual orientation. Some of the animals that we might not be so familiar with, are intersex or they change throughout their life cycle. So, anyway, just it creates a lot of interest and exciting subject, and something that I think the show is really doing a great job. I can't wait to see how other artists explore this subject.